Welcome back here to Adelante, Chicago. Well, his book is called Constitutional Soundbites, and it breaks down some of the toughest parts of the Constitution. Let's talk about it. Joining us now is the book's author, David Chistokas. And again, it's called Constitutional Soundbites. That's the title in English. In Spanish, it's Capsulas Informativas Constitucionales. See that?
Perfect.
Did it just for you.
Thank you so much,
Thanks for coming in. It's nice to have you.
It's nice to be here.
This is great because as I leaf through this book, you hear the Constitution and you're already thinking, complicated, it's going to be really tough for me to understand. And you have done such a beautiful job at explaining it and detailing it in a way that even someone like me gets it, right?
It was actually done, I think, probably in hopefully the way Jefferson did the Declaration of Independence by just trying to explain the common sense of the matter.
Okay. And one of the things that you focus on is the fact that, we live in a world where everything is cut down into sound bites, whether it's social media, where we've got only a few characters to explain what our thoughts are and what we're thinking, or maybe it's you're watching a news program and it's a 10, 15-second sound bite. And so that has been the focus behind this. How do you break down something as complicated as the Constitution into those short 15 seconds? How difficult was that?
Well, it started out actually, for about 3 years or so, I was doing a radio show called Constitutionally Speaking. And for promos for the show, we did a minute of Constitutionally Speaking. And so I started collecting the minutes that we did for the promos for the radio show, and that turned into the book.
Lo and behold, here we are. One of the interesting things is that you said you actually did the Spanish version first and then did the English version of the book, which I thought was actually the opposite, as it is for many of the books that we highlight here on the show. It's first done in English and then they translate it into Spanish, and you say that wasn't the case here. Why not? Why did you do it first in Spanish?
About a little over a year ago. Well, my Spanish is not very good. Okay, my Spanish is so-so. While I've studied some in Costa Rica, and fortunately I was lucky enough to study some in Cuba as well. I've had an interest, and so I was looking about a year ago to see what was available about the Constitution in Spanish, and I found out that there was truly nothing outside of some translations, and some of the translations actually were inaccurate in a number of ways. And so I called my friend Dr. Berta Arias, who is a Spanish professor, longtime Spanish professor, and had accompanied us and arranged the visas, educational visas to Cuba 15 years ago, and we remained friends. I said, Dr. Arias, I said, as far as I know, I can't find anything about this in Spanish to provide this information to 36 million Americans that are more comfortable in Spanish than English. She called me back in a day or so, and she said, you're absolutely right, David, there is nothing. I said, do you want to put something together? So she and I collaborated on this to try and take 18th century English and turn it into 21st century Spanish. And we actually did the Spanish compilation first. And people started saying, well, when are you going to do the English?
Yeah, that's the question. The next question, the logical question, I guess, would be, with so many immigrants coming here to the U.S. and they want to learn a little bit more about our country and what we're all about, I would imagine this book has been very well received, and a lot of them interested in knowing and having it explained to them in a way that is comfortable.
The response has been almost emotional. The fact that there hasn't been anything like this to date. When I go, and this last July, while we were in the middle of the project, I talked to this, in St. Charles, there was this young Latino leadership summit, and I talked to 50 Latino college students from around the country. And everybody was just really excited about this prospect because of the different levels of language skills that people have. I gave a talk on Constitution Day down in Southwest Florida at Ave Maria University, and we passed out some of the work in progress. And one young Latina, she's a college student, I can say young these days, came and spoke to me and said, you ran out of the material, and my dad is very, very interested, and his English isn't good enough to get these important concepts that way, and my Spanish isn't good enough to explain it to him. And so the reception has just been incredible because of the interest, the interest on behalf of the population.
All right, so people who are watching at home want to know exactly what is in the book. So out of all the things, because it's almost a breakdown of you've got a question and then you've got the answer, question, answer. That's the way it's set up. What in the book have people told you is maybe the most interesting, or the thing that they didn't know that they have learned and taken away from this book? If you had to use, you know, an anecdote to sort of sell it to people?
Regarding the very, very beginning, the Constitutional Convention 1787 was held in Philadelphia, of course, in Independence Hall, or what we now call Constitution Hall. But at the time, it was also the capital of Pennsylvania, and this Pennsylvania legislature was meeting in the same building. So when they finished up on September 17th, 1787, they sent it out all around the country for states to ratify. All they had to do in Pennsylvania was walk upstairs. Okay, so they walked it upstairs, and the Pennsylvania legislature took the Constitution and they had 4,500 copies printed for distribution around the country, around the state of Pennsylvania. But the interesting fact about that was that only 3,000 of them were printed in English. 1,500 were printed in German.
Oh.
Fully 1/3 of the people in Pennsylvania in 1787 did not speak English. And it was incredibly important for the founders to explain, to have this available to the people in the language that they understood the best, so that they could understand what they were consenting to, because you can't really consent to something that you don't understand.
Wow.
And I think a message that comes from that story is that sometimes people talk about the rich old white guys that put these documents together. Well, they were much more than that. They were really very concerned, and they're the ones that actually, with, say, the printing of the German copies of the Constitution, started the inclusion process that we are continuing to go through today. And so when people think of the documents from the Declaration through the Constitution through the Bill of Rights, which were the completion of the founding process, when they think of those documents as being old and irrelevant, it's not the case. It's not the case. They're timeless and universal. And from the very first day that the Constitution was put together, it started the inclusion process that we're continuing to go through today.
Thank you so much. Wonderful book. Best of luck to you. And again, it's called Constitutional Soundbites. You can look it up online. Thank you.
Absolutely. The Spanish.
The Spanish. The Spanish and the English, either one. All right, thank you.